my buildings, they wanted housing, and now they're taking away the housing and they're giving them a business, and I got screwed.
Okay. Well, I think what we would do is we have your planner take a look again and have them revisit the entire program with our financial background information that we now have to see the actual economic cost. And that would include not just the cost of the builder and his potential losses, but also to the township and what would happen with regard to students, et cetera, that we have talked about before. I think there's a very solid case that any judge sitting anywhere would easily take a look and say this was the right thing to do. And I think it's so solid that I don't anticipate a lawsuit based on the case that I would intend to build for this building.
Maybe you could sue and tie it up for months.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
This would be a 24-hour business?
Yes.
I'm not particularly fond of that. We have a path marked in the area in the first ward, and it's kind of dangerous 24 hours. I mean, I could go, 12 o'clock, maybe even 1 o'clock, but 24 hours to me is a little too much.
I think that's something we could always address.
Also-
In addition to that, we could also have township police there. There's things we can do to alleviate those concerns.
And, trying to think of another thing. Would this be only residential, or what do you plan to do?
The site would be developed as a quick site check. A quick check
Okay.
site. I don't know if you've seen this, so there's shrubbery that surrounds the entire premises just about. There's a large building with a store, and the store provides all types of food, sundries, et cetera, and a few dispensaries.
So it's just a quick check on the whole piece of property?
Yes.
Okay, I have no more questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also agree, I don't like the 24 hours at all. I just think we're looking for problems with 24 hours, in that section. You're right near around 21, it's not talking about that.
Well, if we could amend it 24 hours, then, I think that's certainly something we would discuss with Quick.
My main concern is the traffic. You have, especially coming down Rutgers Street there, before the bridge, if you catch that light, it backs up. We're gonna have to somehow, I think, have some sort of traffic study done over there, because there is a problem with the traffic backing up onto Washington
I understand
Avenue
what
and backing
exactly what
up.
you're talking about, but we're going to have entrance, well, actually, it'd be better for John to address, but
Yeah.
traffic study is not an issue.
Yeah, that would be something.
We would present the traffic study to the board when that time came.
Because I mean, that whole traffic pattern down there is kind of flaky, because you try to make up, you can't make a left-hand turn onto the bridge because you don't have that signal, so they all come up and around.
Oh, I agree, it's an excellent point, but that will be,
We would address it with the board.
That would be my concern. Besides the sign. Yep.
What's a typical lease for Quick Check? What do you guys usually do? How long?
We normally enter into a 20-year lease with options thereafter.
Okay.
So we make long-term commitments to communities, including we're part of the community in many ways. Quick Check becomes part of the neighborhood. And what I mean by that, for emergency purposes, a lot of times we'll reserve fuel if that's necessary. During Sandy, so many communities called us and said, our police are out of fuel, even though they had reserves, they're gone. So we work with them. We work with the local clubs, local charities. The culture at Quick Check, because we're privately owned, we offer to our people who start with us, they can start at the lowest levels and work their way up to the top, basically. Everything I guess but the president, who's a family member. And so the upward mobility that we offer a lot of people who come with us, we're committed. We understand our people are our most important asset in our business.
You said about 40 jobs?
40. Probably here 40.
For 20 years, 40 jobs for 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chuck, I'm sorry. I know you can leave. I guess our next step is to discuss this amongst ourselves, and then what we will do, we'll put a resolution on to go out and determine if we want to get a plan or if we're looking for this. With the legality of it, we'll sit down with our attorney to see what he thinks about it, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you, Council. Appreciate you.
I appreciate your consideration, thank you.
Good seeing you.
I need a motion to go into private.
Make a motion, we go into private?
Second.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Longo?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel?
Yes.
Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor? Robel?
Yes.
Strumelberg?
Present.
Mayor Kimball?
Yes. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Notice of the meeting has been given to the press and public in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Law. 1 minute to start, Mayor.
What are the matters?
We began paving Lawrence Street this week. The concrete work and curbing work has started just yesterday. We'll move on to North Place and then Madison. Once completed with the parking lots, once completed with the concrete work, they're going to move on to the Friendly House parking lot and then we'll do paving. The regulator projects are almost completed. They completed the Belleville Avenue regulator today. They just need to finish the encapsulation of the regulators with new doors and access to them. The generator at the senior complex is installed. It has been wired. We're waiting for public service to coordinate the date with the contractor to shut the building down so they can have a trial test run on it. With that being said, that should be completed and that building will be fully functional in the form of power. Also had a meeting with the chief of the fire department yesterday, with the deputy mayor and Councilwoman Burke regarding the improvements to the Silver Lake Firehouse. It was a good working meeting where we toured the building and got a better handle on the work that needs to be done. Our goal is to have a formal design spec put together so that we can go out to bid to get that project completed this year. Also went to the Portland Street Playground. Yes.
Question on that.
Yes.
Do we have to do an RFP to get that?
No, we don't. We can do it as a
Services.
professional service, and that's the way we would hope to do it. Okay. Portland Street Playground with Public Works yesterday. Councilman Cosarelli attended that meeting as he was in the building. We went down there, we toured the playground. It's almost completed. Public Works has a little bit of work to do so we can schedule a ribbon cutting ceremony. Nothing else.
First of all, I would like to thank the mayor and council for voting to refurbish the Friendly House. It's been a long time, and I again thank you. Also, I would like to commend the company that has done Lawrence Street. I watched it today, and let me tell you, that is some top-notch company, Cifelli. All my neighbors are so happy they cleaned up and the whole bit. Also, on Frederick and Florence, where the Friendly House lies, the garbage is atrocious in Florence and Frederick. So if you could send a team of public works men to clean that, I'd appreciate it, Mr. Esposito. Thank you.
Kevin, I spoke with you earlier, actually last week. Carmer Avenue, the middle of Carmer Avenue, around 41 Carmer, PSE&G was there a couple of weeks ago. They tore up some of the street, and it was terrible, and then they just went away. I think you were going to contact somebody with this.
I have put a call out to public service. We hope to have a meeting because there's been a number of locations throughout town where they either excavated roadways or public sidewalks that need repair. So when we have that meeting, I can let you know the outcome.
And also, at the last meeting, I spoke about Union Avenue being in such bad shape, beyond potholes at this point. Any news on that with the county to get that resurfaced?
That section will be served as part of the county road improvement program.
And what about the other side of Graylock?
That will be our responsibility, and that will be done as part of our road improvement program. Once we get through the first part of it on Lawrence and Madison, then I'll move on to Graylock.
All right, thank you.
Joe?
I'm very happy also that the Silver Lake Fire, the Friendly House is getting taken care of. That's also an important security function where the plan used to call for the school kids evacuating there and not having to cross streets and stuff, so that's gonna be very good. I was checking, Kevin, on, there's a corner of Linden and Graylock, a missing sign, probably was an accident, that knocked it down. So, somebody called me on that, I don't know if that's on your list of,
I believe when you forwarded me an email, I forwarded to Public Works, I'll check on the status of that.
and I'm also happy to hear Silver Lake Firehouse is gonna get some attention, it's important for that section of town, so, that's all.
Yeah, Kevin, when we were at the meeting at the Cortlandt Street Park, we saw the company trimming the cherry blossom trees.
Oh, yes.
We did have a little discussion with him, Mr. Frantantoni. I don't know if you heard that. The cherry blossom guy cutting down the branches. We told him your concerns, but I think, Kevin, can you write him a memo?
Yes.
So he has it in writing?
Absolutely. We hunted him down actually yesterday and instructed him that we have requested, residents requesting that the trees are trimmed properly, not just cut the.
Take care of the shooters.
Exactly, exactly.
Steve?
Now, I know that we passed the bond last year for the Silver Lake Firehouse. And I know during our meeting with the chief, he's going to look into actually resourcing it to make sure that we have enough firemen to man it as much as possible. So have we gotten anything back from the chief as to the impact on that?
He does anticipate that if he has a shortage of men, that there could be some overtime demands as a result of having the three firehouse back in operation, okay? But ultimately, he believes that currently we have better staffing levels than we did in
Well, then
2000.
in 08, definitely.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that was part of the whole thing, is
Right.
to let attrition deal with it rather than riffing these guys. I mean, at this point, do we have anything to say that, what's our projection out as far as losing additional firemen and making sure that we can always staff it?
There have been a few retirees this
Yeah.
year, and I think there'll continue to be just a few more. But through the grant that we accepted, we are required to keep staffing levels at their current status. Yeah.
So can we get some feedback from him on what he thinks he's going to need over the next year, 2 years,
I'll ask him.
from a staffing perspective? I know we've been working on an ordinance for the abandoned houses, so I wanted to ask you, to ask Mr. Murphy.
Say again?
The ordinance that you guys are working on for the abandoned houses in concert with the law that was passed by the state.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if it would be possible to get it on for the next meeting?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think there's an addition that we'd like to put into it.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a draft copy, and Mr. Murphy and I, along with the code official, have looked at it, and Mr. Murphy has made some suggestions for additions. Once that's completed, we can have it on for the April 10th meeting.
My fear is not only the neighborhoods themselves, but also, you're getting squatters, and that just creates havoc for all of us.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm good.
Communications?
A, request received from St. Peter's Church to hold a procession through the streets or the stations of the cross on Friday, April 3rd, from 10 to noon.
Make a motion to approve it.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Longo?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel?
Yes.
Schumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kibble? B, request received from Belleville High School varsity cheerleaders for permission to conduct tag days on weekends during the months of April and May at local businesses.
Make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Longo?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel?
Yes.
Schumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kibble?
What is
Ordinance number 1 for introduction, and ordinance to exceed municipal budget appropriation and to establish a cap act.
Make a motion, move for introduction.
Second.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Longo?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel?
Yes.
Schumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kibble? Ordinance number 2 for introduction, and ordinance of the governing body of the Township of Belleville adopting the redevelopment plan.
resolutions, public participation?
Make a motion, open public participation.
Second.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Longo?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel?
Yes.
Schumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kibble?
Yes. Frank Antoni?
good evening, Mayor and Council. I know the winter's over, and we're gonna start to fill potholes. I've seen some being filled. Some of them being filled with water still in them. So I suggest many times, we have propane tank, heat them out, tack coat them first, and it's only March now. We should seal the cracks in the streets in the hot weather. So maybe we can plan out in August, we seal the streets. Some of our roads deteriorated, the failure to seal these cracks. The water got in there and popped our roads apart. So maybe with 6 months' notice, we can possibly get it done in the nice hot weather and prepare for next winter. Now, in regards to that, the Imagine project or the Northeast redevelopment, I know it's morphed through several different names over the last couple of years. I think you're kicking it back to the planning board tonight. Thank you for that. But this is a crazy plan. It's similar to the great Xanadu. It was built on Route 3, which then turned into another name, went bankrupt several times, and now it's called the American Dream. I think it's going to wind up to be called the Jersey Nightmare. We have a unique opportunity in Belleville. The Walter Kitty site is an ideal location, which I've been saying for years, for commercial, industrial warehousing. We're right near Newark Airport, right near Port Newark, right near New York. And now comes a report just a month ago, as the economy continues to improve, demand for industrial real estate in New Jersey grows in 2014. Demand is rising for warehouses and distribution centers as more consumers shop online and expect quick delivery. UPS is expanding its operations and all that. We're a unique place. There's no services that we have to provide, no schools for them, no garbage pickup for this. This is what we should be looking for at that site down there. This project that's proposed, the Imagine thing, with its density of almost 300 units per acre is absurd. I just want to read you something from about 15 years ago. I was part of a group of citizens who hired a lawyer to fight the outrageous redevelopment of the Soho property, you recall that? And then our group, CORE, met with the developer. And here's an article that says the developer met with CORE. He offered to reduce the development density from 25 units per acre down to 20 or 21 units per acre. Considering the existing master plan calls for 12 units per acre, this density is still too high. This is Councilman Rodel's campaign literature.
Got it.
So if you're against
I still agree
20
with
to
that. By the way,
21,
Minnie, I still agree with that.
I'm sure you're going to be against 295 per acre. As far as these tax abatements and pilots, I won't waste time, but I read you the state controller's reports on how bad these are for the state of New Jersey and for communities. Here's another article from 2010. We're going to have a project built on Washington Avenue and William Street. And here's the new thing. NBI has a contractual stipulation for it to receive a 30-year tax abatement on the property. Mayor Ray Kimball said he didn't agree with that part of the deal. The vacant lot is worth close to $20,000 a year in taxes, Kimball said. Put a structure on that, we lose a lot of money over 30 years, close to $3 billion in taxes. So Mayor, I thank you too for being against tax abatements. So, got quite a few other things to say, but I want the focus tonight to be on that obscene proposal down there at the north end of the property, right next to the high tension wire. Hopefully, you said it will do the right thing for taxpayers and the residents of Belleville. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, Jeff Mattingly, 56 Walnut. I'd like to piggyback on, of course, onto what Mr. Frantantoni was just saying, and I'd like to hope that I'm preaching to the choir. Redevelopment is an important tool for a municipality, a city, and anyone else. And it's something that we sorely need under circumstances where there is no other way to develop the property. I can see where that applies to Jacobs, to Roche. I don't see where that applies to Walter Kitty. We have a recent history of that property being sought after for development. It's being wrapped into a incredibly ambitious, in my opinion, overdevelopment plan, and it has no rightful meaning there. It is developable. It does not require redevelopment. It'll go at market forces. It'll be commercial. It'll be an asset, a relief to Belleville taxpayers who are homeowners. The fact of the matter is, Belleville and other towns, Clifton, were historically known as a value because of their commercial and industrial offsets to the taxes of residential. But we've heard for the past 20 years now, developers, one after another, suggest that the only way to increase ratables is through density increasing residential, which has proven to be the downfall of many of our surrounding communities, but we still hear this and we still follow suit. So as I said, I hope I'm preaching to the choir when I suggest to you that that is not the way to go, and to leave the commercial aspect in the valley, commercial planned retail. It is definitely what we need as a township, and to reduce the burden of long-term debt, which as interest rates are promised to start going up by Fed Chairman Yellen, that's going to increase that debt service substantially as time goes on, in the variable rate that it goes. So please consider that when you advise the planning board, should that be your path, that property needs to be removed entirely from any redevelopment plan. It does not meet the criteria that the Boxer report from the state of New Jersey points to as misuse of redevelopment. Thank you.
Sir?
Good evening, Frank Fleischman, 132 Franklin Street. I want to piggyback on what Vinnie and Jeff had to say about the proposal as well. I think one of the big problems is that nothing in New Jersey seems to exist that we can compare this development to, especially in a small town like ours. If we had some sort of yardstick where we could say, okay, it's happened down in South Jersey or someplace else in New Jersey and it's been successful or something like that, that might actually be an asset toward toward what the development might bring. The developer, I've talked to the developer a couple of times, private conversations, and the one thing he's always stressed to me is that he knows more about this than I do. And that's true. I don't doubt that at all. One of the things I do know probably a little bit more about than he does are higher education trends. I've worked in higher education almost 20 years now. And the demographic that the developer is looking to solicit for this proposal are young couples, hopefully without kids, but inevitably there will be, or empty nesters. Okay? This demographic will most likely have their kids going to college. All right? And what happens, and it's been happening since at least the 80s, when kids graduate and they're done that sort of thing, it takes them a little while to find a job. Hopefully not too long. But inevitably they wind up home with their parents. And unfortunately, in a situation where we have 1 or 2 bedroom residential units, when we have a third person, there we go with more sewage, with more water use, with more garbage collection, that sort of thing. And it's going to add more cost, I would say, to the whole thing. The other thing I haven't heard much about is what is being offered to the Township of Belleville to help prepare for this. We're wondering if we can staff the Silver Lake Firehouse right now. If we have a large development with 50-story buildings, I'm not sure our firefighters are trained to do high-rise fires. That might be something they have to cross-train in Jersey City or New York City for. And obviously, we probably need more of them. We probably need more police officers. Probably the biggest thing that I have a problem with concerning this proposal is the idea that it seems like everything is, if you listen to the developer, everything is contained. It's going to be, well, transportation will be by a train, there won't be a lot more cars and sort of thing, there'll be stores, there might even be, you know, a private school or something like that, or recreation facilities. And to me, that smacks of a private gated community, okay? In a former lifetime, I was a journalist, a community journalist, and I worked in towns where there were private communities. And while they certainly have a right to exist, sometimes they're very divisive, okay? And sometimes there's the idea of, well, it's okay, we live within your town boundaries, we'll pay your taxes, but don't expect us to be involved. If there needs to be residents, we want residents who are going to be involved in the community. We are very close to the community, we care about our community. If there's going to be more people coming in, we want them to be involved. I think Belleville has a lot of work to do without considering this proposal. We have to address, excuse me, we have to address quality of life issues. We have to retain and recruit better businesses better to our business district. We have a lot to do even without this new development. And I hope that you all do the right thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Georgia Blake, Stephen Street. Now that the weather's changed, you can go around town, and many of the street signs are very weather beaten, and in some cases you could barely read them. That needs to be addressed. That's a safety issue. I don't know how often you do the handicap assessment, Mr. Esposito, but there was an application put in for 298 Union Avenue for handicap parking. I can give you the last name.
Yeah, just.
Meeting.
Yeah, just.
Lastly, I just wanted to discuss, everybody's talking about the valley in terms of the Kitty property. Number one, which is near my house, is an issue. It's an eyesore. If we have a commercial entity that's ready to go in, where we will get ratables versus abatements and pilots, maybe the feasibility of that should be looked at. I don't know what the specifications are in terms of the bid or the contract, as Councilman Kennedy had addressed those concerns in terms of our opening ourselves up as a municipality for litigation. But I think we should look at it in terms of somebody coming to Belleville. I mean, if you look around this room, for every 3 lawyers / developers, there's perhaps 1 citizen. So we have something here in Belleville. Yes, we do have a small town and we have land, but we also have needs. We have people that need jobs. There's 40 jobs over a 20-year lease. I think that's something worth looking at. And if it means that we have people coming in, purchasing, spending dollars in Belleville and getting back on 21 or going back across the river, then that's great, because that's what we need. Rather than being concerned about putting 60 condo units that perhaps will be rented or perhaps not, and dealing with the 5 or 10 or 15-year abatement or pilot program that won't satisfy any of our, or relieve any of our tax concerns, then we would be, really doing a disservice if we don't look at the feasibility of perhaps having a commercial property going in there. Thank you.
Thank you. I know you're hiding.
You're hiding.
Vic Mafucci, 61 Continental. As a Vietnam vet, I'd like to thank you for recognizing the vets on March 30th.
Thank you.
Need a motion closed?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Bob. One more.
Oh, Anthony Rizzo, 76 Fairview Place. I just wanted to say I have that package for you guys for the drug courts. I'll send it to you, I guess. That works. And it was about 6 years ago. Remember when I complained about the fines and fees for tickets and about being cheaper or whatnot? I don't know if you do remember that. I did find a solution towards that. There was a program in Milwaukee that borrowed the Finnish and Norwegian system of date fines, where I'd like you to explore that too. I wrapped up those programs and packages that pretty much fairly assesses a punishment on someone's ability to pay versus just sending out arrest warrants if they can't get to the fines and such. And yeah, I'll wrap that up for you as well in that. But it really is just an idea of cutting someone's income for that day in half. And if you were to keep them in jail for, let's say, 5 days, instead of jail, they would just pay that half a day's payment, and they still have enough to survive off of, is the goal in that, considering some people that only make $300-400 a week will end up suffering a lot when you take a $300 speeding ticket versus the rich who make $1,000 an hour.
Nothing to do with rich or poor people. You obey the law.
Well,
I mean, I'm
it's
poor,
about a fairness
and I can't
of
pay
the
my
law.
taxes. Should somebody pay half my taxes for
But
me?
someone making $100 an hour versus $7.25 or $8.25 an hour is a big difference,
I've
and
been
you
driving
impact
for
someone's
40
life
years,
a
so I
lot
haven't
more
got
than
a
someone
ticket, a
else.
speeding ticket or anything.
And the last 30 years, wages have stagnated for most of the world, so it's just not fair to do that to people.
You're right. And people
Right,
that
just
can't
in that
pay the
regard.
water bill, we should let them slide. People that can't pay their taxes, we should let them slide.
Well, it's not about that, it's also about bringing back community service as forms of punishment and just more humane ways of dealing with people.
I guess so.
That's it.
Carmel Flesh from 132 Franklin Street, Belleville. I want to thank the mayor and the council for acting so quickly on the plans with the Silver Lake Firehouse. Also wanted to find out when the street cleaning was going to start again, and also, and the, actually this is more for the county. What is that, Newark Avenue?
Yes.
Oh, Newark Avenue is horrible. Is that a county? That's county, right?
Look, Avenue is town.
Oh, that's, I wasn't sure. All right, then Newark Avenue is horrible. That needs to be worked out. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Gassion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to respond to some of the comments. First, Mr. Frantantoni compared this project to Xanadu. Xanadu is a recreation project, not in any way civil. Next, he talked about Walter Kidder being an ideal location. Well, it's been an ideal location for 30 years, and nothing has happened. This is a project that will make it work. Then he talked about Soho. Soho is completely different. This is a high-rise project. Soho is not at all similar. He then talked about pilots. My clients never mentioned pilots and never sought any tax abatement. He said this is an obscene proposal. This is a tremendous opportunity for Belleville. Will help with taxes, will help with business. Mr. Mattingly said that there were a great opportunity, again, at Walter Kidder. Well, I'm completely familiar with Walter Kidder for more than 30 years, and there's been deal after deal to try to purchase that property, and not one of them has come to fruition. Mr. Fleischman said there's nothing to compare it to. Well, you certainly can take a look at Jersey City and what Jersey City is doing with a positive aspect. He then talked about demographics and children coming back home. He's got no factual basis for that. I think last he said what offer was made to Belleville. When you have an opportunity to enter into a developer's agreement with my clients or any other redeveloper and extract many things, and I'm sure they'd be willing to do it. This project would do nothing but help the municipality. You'd be giving up an unbelievable opportunity that many other municipalities would love to have if they had the land and were able to do this. And I couldn't quite understand what you did with the ordinance, but if you're not voting on the ordinance tonight, I ask that you delay voting on the resolutions and give my clients an opportunity to meet with the development committee, which meeting is tentatively scheduled for April 9th. Obviously, I would hope that you vote on the ordinance this evening. I thank you for the time you've given to me.
Thank you. Make a motion, close public hearing?
Second?
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Longo?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel?
Yes.
Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kimball?
Yes.
Make a motion to move the consent agenda.
Second.
Take off
16, 17,
9 and 10.
17 and 16. Oh, 16 and 17.
16, 17,
9 and 10.
19,
and 9 and 10.
19,
And then 19.
All right, ready?
1 minute, Mayor, please. Okay.
All right. Resolution 17, I want to read into the record.
No,
Ready?
let's do item 10 first.
Oh, 9 and 10.
9 and 10 are cool. I just want to congratulate our town manager and
So you want to move them together?
Yeah, together. Second.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Longo? Nattari?
Yes.
Robel?
Yes.
Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kibble?
Okay, resolution 16, a resolution of the governing body of the Township of Belleville rejecting the redevelopment plan. Whereas the governing body of the Township of Belleville requested preparation by the Belleville Planning Board of the redevelopment plan for the designated Northeast redevelopment area, blocks 9101, blocks 9, 10, 14, block 9103, block 1, block 10002, lot 1 for consideration and adoption. Whereas the Township Special Project Planner, John Madden of Mazer Consulting, PA, has drafted a redevelopment plan entitled Northeast Redevelopment Plan dated August 2014. And whereas the redevelopment plan was considered and approved by the Belleville Township Planning Board at a public hearing held on September 18th, October 9th, November 13th, 2014, December 11th, 2014, determining that the Northeast redevelopment plan is consistent with the township's master plan. And whereas a copy of the redevelopment plan approved by the Belleville Township Planning Board on December 11th, 2014 is attached here too, and recommended that the Township Council approve the redevelopment plan with conditions. And whereas the governing body of the Township of Belleville has examined and considered the redevelopment plan and the reasons set forth on the record on 3/10/2015 and recorded in the minutes, determined that the redevelopment plan is not in the public interest to adopt and is not consistent with the Township Master Plan pursuant to New Jersey State Statute 4812A-7. Now there be resolved that, and enacted that the governing body of the Township of Belleville in the County of Essex and the State of New Jersey, that it rejects the Northeast redevelopment plan for the following reasons, which should be recorded in the minutes pursuant to New Jersey State Statute 4012-7. The governing body does not agree with the Planning Board's finding that the Northeast redevelopment plan is consistent with the Belleville Township Master Plan. The governing body finds that the proposed density, building height, and intensity of development proposed by the development option 3 is out of scale with the existing and planned land use character of Washington Avenue and its surrounding neighborhoods. The governing body did not find that the proposed redeveloper presents sufficient documentation from credible, objective professionals to demonstrate that the scale of the development proposed in option 3 was supported by convincing marketing and financial evidence. The governing body notes that the plan on page 9 recognizes the flexibility redevelopment strategy involving their redevelopment options, allow for a creative response to the future market conditions and financial capabilities. As Mr. Madden testified at the Planning Board public hearing, the intensity of the development proposed under option 3 may be supported by long-term demographic and economic trends emerging in the New York, Northern New Jersey area. But there is no evidence in the future beyond development occurring along the Hudson River in Hudson County or Bergen County that the development of the scale called for in option 3 would ever find a feasible market in Belleville. That said, it makes no planning sense to approve a redevelopment plan for an unrealistic development on this scale and invite unforeseeable legal and zoning challenges. Further resolved, a copy of this resolution shall be published as required by the law in 10 days of its passage.
Somebody make a motion on 16.
Make a motion.
Second.
Quick call roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Longo?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel?
Yes.
Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kibble?
Yes.
The resolution is approved.
Resolution 17 is non-useful.
Bills are defeated, though.
Oh, make a motion to move resolution 17.
Second.
Clerk call roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
No.
Kennedy?
No.
Longo?
No.
Nattari?
No.
Robel?
No.
Strumelberg?
No.
Mayor Kimball?
No.
Resolution is defeated.
What I want to say on 19, the resolution of the town of Belleville authorizing an accelerated tax sale, December. I vote against this every year because, number one, it is Christmas time. I know people do own taxes, but I feel that you should give them a little more time and go into January or February. So again, I vote no.
Just note, to have one of our budgets approved a few years ago, we had to do this for 5 years. This might be the last year, but we had to do it for 5 years.
Can it be changed after that?
After the 5 years are over, we can look at it, but
Thank
we needed it for the budget
All right.
4 years ago, 3 years
Clerk
ago.
call roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Longo?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel?
Yes.
Strumelberg?
No.
Mayor Kimball?
Yes.
Resolution is approved. New business.
Oh, yeah. New business, I have a resolution rejecting the bid received on March 19, 2015, and reauthorizing the advertisement of requests for the proposals for electric credit card, debit card services for the Township of Belleville.
I'll second.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Longo?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel?
Yes.
Strumelberg? Yes. Mayor Kimball?
Yes.
Resolution is approved.
New business?
No new business.
Kev, can you just tell the audience, please, with the street cleaning and what's going to take effect?
Yes, alternate side of the street parking will go back into effect effective tomorrow.
With warnings.
I'm sorry?
With warnings.
With warnings, for the first week.
That's for effect a week from tomorrow.
Correct. So effective April 1st, they will be sweeping the streets and tickets will be issued. So the reverse 911 call has been made as of yesterday. The township website has been updated. We'll also request that the local papers also publish that to assist our residents.
I just had two things. Yeah, one was, can we explore an ordinance so when anybody comes into our town and cuts up our roads, like John's saying, and I know there's an ordinance out there to help us get a better patching job than we're getting at this point.
We did have a conversation with Public Works as well as engineering to look into the infrared patching on any roads that are disturbed. So the engineer is going to explore language and give it to Mr. Murphy, and we'll try to get that adopted.
Okay, that would be great. The last thing, just your prayers for Marilyn Mango McCabe, was a teacher in Belleville High School. She passed today. She was a teacher for almost 40 years, so God bless her.
And me on the hat there and all,
Ray will give you that.
there's an Easter egg hunt for any children. Easter egg hunt for the children on Saturday at 11 o'clock.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.